I am going to exercise the rule of the House to offer the Holman Rule amendment here in this appropriations bill. And I rise to offer my amendment that reduces the salary of Melissa Schwartz, Director of Communications of the Department of Interior, to $1. Melissa Schwartz is yet another horrendous and miserable use of taxpayer dollars. Look at this. She is a mask-wearing, quadruple-vaxxed, Green New Deal extremist, and unfortunately, a liberal troll who has harassed me even in committee hearing rooms. She shouldn't be employed at the Department of Interior. Melissa Schwartz belongs under a bridge. Melissa had the nerve and lack of respect to confront me in the halls of Congress following a Department of Interior meeting. In this hearing, she had the audacity to come and personally attack a member of Congress. This DEI hire made clear she doesn't work for the American people, and she is simply another misguided mouthpiece for liberal extremists that hates conservatives and people that disagree with her eccentric views. Schwartz spends most of her taxpayer time tweeting nonsense and trying to promote the Biden regime's radical New Deal scam. Melissa and her colleagues believe that climate change is the ultimate threat to humanity. They are willing to kill American jobs and sacrifice the health of our economy at all costs as they pursue their extremist ideology.
This amendment is petty, punitive. Rather than pursuing grudges against public servants, my colleagues across the aisle should focus their energy on negotiating with the Senate on a bill to fund the government. I urge my colleagues to reject this amendment, and I reserve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise today to offer my amendment that utilizes the Holman Rule to reduce the salary of Director of Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, Elizabeth Klein, to $1. Ms. Klein is a radical environmentalist and a partisan hack comprised of special interests and mirrored in ethical conflicts. Her conflicts of interest were so severe that even Senator Manchin voted to block her nomination as Deputy Secretary of the Interior. During her testimony in the House Committee on Natural Resources, I questioned Ms. Klein about her failed nomination to become Deputy Secretary of the Interior. I asked if she had been provided with a recusal list and formally requested that she provide that list to the committee. Ms. Klein told the committee that she was, quote, happy to provide that list, end quote. Shamefully, it took a letter from the committee and this aggressive committee questioning for Klein to send the committee a very delayed recusal list that should have been in place almost immediately after her hiring. Ms. Klein spent several years funneling money from Michael Bloomberg to sue the Trump administration and pay for the Green New Deal scam. Lawyers she had placed in attorneys general's offices across the country. Given her myriad of federal lawsuits and conflicts, there should be little to nothing that Ms. Klein is allowed to work on at any sub-agency within the Department of Interior.
This amendment, once again, is petty and punitive. I don't think this is the appropriate place to pursue grudges against public servants, hard-working public servants who we ask to do an extremely important job in Washington. Let me just say this. This is a use of the Holman Amendment in a way to just talk about my colleague on the other side of the aisle's objection to the work that's going on related to climate change. This bill is going to be full of amendments from people who either don't believe in climate change, don't think we should invest in it, aren't willing to think about the future. This is our job, is to make sure that we are protecting the future of this planet, of this country, of our economy, of the people who live in the United States, the future for our children and grandchildren. we're going to hear a litany of opposition through amendments like these, from people who don't believe that we're having the hottest summer on record, who aren't paying attention to the extreme floods, to the storms that are impacting us, to the damage it's already done to the economy, to the billions of dollars we're already spending, who are going to use any means possible to block the work we're doing to fight climate change. I oppose this amendment. I'm going to continue to oppose these amendments that are really just another way to deny that climate change exists and that we have a responsibility to work on it. I reserve.
The gentlewoman from Maine reserves. The gentlewoman from Colorado is recognized. And she has 30 seconds remaining.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to say that I care deeply about our environment. I want clean air. I want clean water. I want to be able to be good stewards of the land that we have been gifted here in the United States of America. And I don't believe that pursuing these extremist Green New Deal scam policies is advancing that agenda that we have. I don't want to spend tax dollars on these initiatives and this purpose. I want to do the work of the people, and I believe that my amendment gets us one step closer to that by reducing the salary of Ms. Klein to $1. Madam Chair, I yield.
The gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentlewoman from Maine is recognized.
Once again, I will say that we're going to have a litany of amendments from people who don't believe in climate change, no matter what they say, no matter how many times people on the other side of the aisle say, oh, no, I really want clean air and clean water, but I don't want to do the hard work that has to be done. And to call these policies extremist Green New Deal policies is just a way to dismiss that we have a serious problem before us. We have serious work to do. It is our responsibility to protect the planet for future generations, to make sure that we can continue to live and exist on this planet. I reject this amendment, and I yield back.
The gentlewoman from Maine yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Colorado. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Colorado.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Rise to offer my amendment that redirects $2 million to hazardous fuels reduction activities within the Bureau of Land Management to prevent catastrophic wildfires and save lives. The year I was elected, Colorado suffered the worst fire season in Colorado history with the 3 largest recorded wildfires we have ever had. Hundreds of homes were destroyed and evacuated, and Coloradans endured more than 100 days of fire. The Cameron Peak fire burned more than 208,000 acres and more than 460 structures to the tune of $6 million in property losses. The East Troublesome fire on the border of my district killed 2 people. Coloradans also suffered severe health issues resulting from significant smoke from these fires. Wildfire smoke causes serious disorders, including eye and respiratory tract infections, reduced lung function, bronchitis, exacerbation of asthma, and even premature death. Let's put the lives of the American people first. Take significant action to benefit our environment by passing my hazardous fuels reduction amendment and redirecting $2 million to these hazardous fuels reductions activities within the Bureau of Land Management. And I encourage the adoption of my amendment. Madam Chair, I reserve.
Well, I'm very, very supportive of increasing funding in this important program. And I want to thank the chairman for his work over the years, hard work and bipartisan work in combating wildland fires. But I simply cannot support the offset proposed for this amendment. Funding for the EPA in the base bill is already cut $1.8 billion below the enacted level, and this reduction makes it impossible for the EPA to carry out its mission. We need the worker bees of the EPA to keep the EPA moving forward for the American public. So I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment, and I yield back my time.
The gentlewoman from Minnesota yields back her time. The gentlewoman from Colorado is recognized.
Madam Chair, I am proud of my party's work in reducing taxpayer spending by $1.8 billion in this bill. And I also am encouraged to find even more offsets where we can redirect funding and put them to a more appropriate use for the taxpayer, showing that their best interest is what we are all here serving in Washington, D.C. on their behalf for. Madam Chair, again, I support the adoption of my amendment that redirects $2 million for the fuels hazardous management in the Bureau of Land Management. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentlewoman from Colorado yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Colorado. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.
I rise to offer my common sense amendment that redirects $2 million of the Inspector General to combat waste, fraud, and abuse within the EPA. As a proud member of the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, I am a firm believer in increasing transparency of federal programs and actions within the executive branch. Honest, hardworking Americans should be able to trust that their tax dollars are being spent responsibly and for their intended purposes. The EPA Office of Inspector General is charged with providing critical oversight over tens of billions of dollars that are spent by the EPA, U.S. Chemical Safety and Hazard Investigation Board, as well as more than $100 billion that is being doled out through the so-called Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the so-called Inflation Reduction Act that we all know did nothing to reduce inflation. Ask anyone you meet in a grocery store. My common sense amendment will help ensure that the Inspector General has the funding and resources they need to provide strict oversight of the EPA. I have found a pay for, so this is not deficit spending. We are not wasting taxpayer dollars. We are redirecting these $2 million. And I urge my colleagues to support my amendment to redirect important resources to the Inspector General. Madam Chair, without a reserve.
Madam Chair, to be clear, I fully support the oversight efforts and believe in the mission of the Inspector General's office across this government. It's vital. When I was former chair of this committee, I supported their work. I supported their work as the former chair of the Defense Subcommittee and as ranking member. But I have to strongly disagree with the offset and the treatment of the EPA in this bill in general. In base bill, the EPA is cut by nearly 20%. Almost every single account is cut except for the Office of the Inspector General. So quite frankly, the Inspector General's office does pretty well under this bill being protected. Cutting every single program at the EPA and seeking to increase funding for only one office, which happens to be the Oversight Office, is clearly an attempt by the majority to politicize the Inspector General, and that to me is just unacceptable, Madam Chair.